house. That kind of distance. Not too long a walk, really. Actually, my wife and I belong to a walking group, and we are a group that's under the organisation of the University of the Third Age. A lovely saying, which simply means we're a group of retired folks. And every other Thursday, we tackle a walk of more or less this kind of length, 6 miles or so. The people enjoy chatting to each other on the walk. We take our lunch with us, and we start off around mid-morning, and we finish in the afternoon. But today, this is the road we're on. See our next slide. And there it is. Maybe that first Easter day on the road from Jerusalem to Emmaus, maybe it was quite a hot, dusty afternoon. We're not told that, but at this time of the year in Israel, it can be quite hot and dusty. It can also, I have to tell you, deluge with rain when it wants to as well. Now, you're probably familiar with this story from Luke's Gospel of the journey to Emmaus. It's read in churches at some point every year in the Easter season. So what's going on in this story? Two of Jesus' followers, one named Cleopas and another who's not named, are leaving Jerusalem. They're walking away from it. But we're not actually told why that is. Why are they going away from the scene of all these events of the last couple of days? And they're heading for this village of Emmaus. Back then, the walk there was a good few hours' walk, probably. Walking was the way people generally got round back then. But, however, their real destination is not a place on a map. Their real destination is a new experience of God. And it's beginning to happen within them, inside them, as they walk along. It's the strange events that have unfolded in Jerusalem over the previous couple of days that form the subject of the conversation they're having with each other as they go. Now, they've been followers of Jesus for some little time, but in another way, they've still got a lot to discover. They don't really know as yet what it means to be full followers of Christ. Do they see, I wonder, being a follower as just something that's in the realm of ideas? Words, things in your head, it's a message, it's a philosophy, a list of things to understand, and that's what it's all about, being a Christian. Well, it's not. Maybe they haven't cottoned on yet the truth that to follow Christ means a new direction for our whole lives, not just a list of things to believe. Yes, there are things to believe, but it's a lot more than that. We do need to remember this is the afternoon of the very first Easter day. And like all the disciples, a new reality. It hasn't dawned on everybody yet. Yes, they know Jesus has lived and died, and this is why they're said to be sad and cast down, as Luke writes the account today. They don't yet know that God has raised Jesus to life. They don't know the great truth yet. We could say they've missed out on Easter. What's it like to miss out on Easter these days? Probably to lack a few chocolate eggs, I should think. But really, they've missed out so far on the Easter message. Then here's the fascinating part. As they go along, a third figure joins them. This is where the mystery begins. It's Jesus. We know the story, don't we? We know it's Jesus. He doesn't press himself upon them. He doesn't reveal himself to them straight away. Interesting. The story doesn't say at this point they didn't recognize him. Doesn't say that, not quite. It says they were kept from recognizing him. And that's a different thing. Something prevented them at this point from recognizing who it was. There's an interesting quotation I came across some years ago. We can see it on the screen, I hope. And it's about walking. No one knows who wrote this. It says, "Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Walk beside me and just be my friend." Well, I don't know the exact context of what it was when that was written or who wrote it, but there's something of that in the way Jesus simply falls in alongside them on the road today. And we have a picture of them on the next slide. So there's the three on the road, with Jesus, the mystery figure, among them. Well, he invites a response from them, saying, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" Nice open question. So he takes them seriously and doesn't force himself onto them. At this point, Cleopas and his companion are at that stage where the road they're on, that's where they need to be, on the road with him. And when it happens, they're going to be turned around. They're walking to Emmaus as we meet them today in the story, but they're about to be pointed back to Jerusalem, road of faith. And a complete change of direction has taken place by the end of the story. It's a brilliantly written story, one of the very best, I think, in the Gospels. The full implication of what's been written about Christ in the Scriptures needs to be shown to them. And Jesus is the one who comes to them and shows them these things today, reveals, interprets something to them. Doesn't just read it to them, he helps them to understand and see. And isn't it a beautiful irony when, in answer to Jesus' question about what they're discussing, they ask him if he's the only one around here. Are you the only one around here who doesn't know what's been going on with Jesus of Nazareth back in Jerusalem, that great mighty prophet in word and deed? We hoped he was going to be the one, the great king who would bring Israel back to becoming a great nation. Don't you know all this? And of course, it's Jesus of Nazareth standing right there beside them, talking to them. Lovely irony that's in this little tale. Jesus then raises the question, the conversation, a notch. He puts it up a bit higher by telling them, "How foolish you are, how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" I don't think he's been aggressive to them when he says that, but I think he is saying, look, you're a bit slow, aren't you, really? Let me tell you what this is all about. Let me show you some of these scriptures, help you to see what was said about the Messiah, what was said would happen. So he takes them through Moses and all the prophets, revealing what's in them about himself, about Christ. They get to the house. They invite him to stop and say, "The afternoon's getting on. Soon it's going to be towards evening." And while they're there, this memorable breaking of bread, and the penny drops as to who this is on our next picture. There it is, the memorable supper at Emmaus. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. Fascinating detail again. The moment of recognition, moment of revelation, and then Jesus leaves them suddenly. There's a very famous painting of this we'll see on our next picture. I think this is probably the most famous picture of this event. There are quite a lot of paintings made of it, the supper at Emmaus. This one's in the National Gallery in London. You can go and see the original. Some of you might have seen the original. And it's by the great Italian artist Caravaggio.